Welcome into WarUp on the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, Jeff. Next nice little preview show we have coming for you here today. Greg Warnock, Jeff Upson with you here as we look ahead, Jeff, to some exciting wrestling coming up this Saturday, taking place at Peters Township High School. We have the WPIAL All-Star team taking on the Ohio All-Stars at 4 o'clock. Followed by the Pennsylvania team taking on Team USA at 6 o'clock. Always such a fun event. It's the 49th annual event coming up. And Jeff, I know you're part of that committee. We just talk a little bit about the preparations and everything that's going on to get ready for this Saturday.
Yeah, it's been months of planning. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to make it happen, and it's more than just a wrestling event, right? We have the banquet, we have get together, we have the Wrestlers and Business Network. It's a whole thing, right? It's really 2.5 full days. So tomorrow's a full day, Saturday's a full day. Sunday we have breakfast at the hotel. Today, folks are already there setting up. So it's just a lot of work. We have a lot of really good people involved and a lot of help. So it makes it easy, but it's definitely a lot of work. We're excited once Saturday happens, like when the wrestling starts. I think we're all gonna have a sigh of relief. Like, all right, let's sit back and have some fun. So yeah, I'm excited for it. We're always excited for the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. So it should be a good one this year too. Pennsylvania certainly has the odds stacked against them, but you never know. Pennsylvania's been able to pull it off with stacked odds before. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, there's always been a lot of upsets and matches that you thought you knew which way it was going to go, and it just goes the total opposite direction. And obviously, you also have the WPIAL team, which in a lot of states, it's going to appear against some of the best in Ohio. This team could go up against pretty much any team, right? This is a team that's just as good as it's up there with the Pennsylvania team as far as quality. The WPIAL never disappoints as far as that goes, and usually have a dominant run. But let's look at the matchups, Jeff, and talk about the wrestlers that are going to take the mat. And we'll first start things off at 4 o'clock, WPIAL versus Ohio. And it starts with a girls' matchup, Jeff. Isabella DeVito of Kiski area. She's headed to Lock Haven, taking on Kaylee Lang from Marysville, uncommitted at the moment, but a good one for the girls to get started.
Yeah, this is we've been involving the girls more and more at the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, and I think you're going to see a huge jump for the 50th anniversary next year. But yeah, this year we've got a girl on both the undercard and the main card, right? We have Bella DeVito in for the WPIAL team. Really excited to see her go out there and scrap. She's going to Lock Haven. She's a stud, right? She's been involved in a lot of our events for PA Power Wrestling. She's been in the Surge. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing this matchup. And to be honest with you, like I said, I think we're just going to continue seeing this grow more and more, especially next year. I think we're going to see a big jump.
Then we go into the boys section. 121 pounds, Ryan Klingensmith of Kiski area. So back-to-back Cavaliers. He's headed to St. Vincent, the brand new wrestling program getting underway, and he's taking on Max Hermes, who's headed to Rutgers.
Yeah, this is a big-time matchup here, and Ryan Klingensmith has his hands full here, and Hermes is an absolute stud. I got to see him a few times in his career, and he's a guy who he's going to Rutgers, right? He's obviously a Division I recruit for a reason. He's really good, and he's a 3-time state champion, right? So, and he has over 200 wins in his career. When you look at these career records for some of the Ohio guys, you're like, how did you get 181 matches considering COVID years? Because there's a lot of guys in Pennsylvania that are just struggling to get 100 wins due to that COVID year. So, definitely a tall task for Ryan Klingensmith against Max Hermes.
Well, you better not let Chris Heater hear that, Jeff. He's probably now at this point, slamming his computer up and down, mad at you because you just continue to pick against his Cavaliers.
I didn't pick again. I didn't say like Ryan Klingensmith was going to get pounded. I just said he's got a really. It's probably one of Ohio's better guys. I mean, you look at the pure results there. I mean, other than Russo at 215, Hermes is probably their best guy there. So take it for what it is, Coach.
127, Ethan Lieben of Hempfield. He'll be wrestling. He's going to Bucknell, and he'll be wrestling Austin McBurney from Maslin Perry, who's headed to Brown.
Yeah, I mean, you look at just in terms of where the WPIAL is, and having brought down Ethan Lieben down to 127. I think he's a really good fit for us there. And, having a guy like Anthony Ferraro at 133 is not a bad 1-2 punch. Those two wrestled before they wrestled in the state tournament, right? Alessandro is also going to Bucknell, so that's kind of if it would have matched up, right? If Lieben would have went 33 instead of 27 and they would have flipped, he would have went against his future teammate. So, we did avoid that by moving. Not that we knew that ahead of time, but yeah, Lieben coming down to 27 against McBurney, who's took third in Ohio and he's going to Brown. So obviously he's pretty tough.
Yeah, and you mentioned then D'Alessandro. He's from Mayfield going to Bucknell, taking on Anthony Ferraro, heading to Edinboro. Edinboro, 3 guys from the WPIAL team. Obviously, the teammates from Waynesburg at the bottom half, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Ferraro, I mean, he turned it on, right? He came into the WPIAL tournament 4th or 5th seed. Is he even going to make it to the state tournament? And he just crushed it in Hershey. Just a fantastic tournament and very deserving of this spot on the team.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there was a better guy from the WPIAL who had a better run at the state tournament than him. You reminded me of Jack Pletcher, last year. If you remember Jack Pletcher, he was 4th out of the region, right? He was 4th out of the region and ended up finishing 3rd in the state. So, Anthony Ferraro, same thing. He didn't go to the finals of the regional tournament, but came back all the way to the consolation finals in Hershey. And you're right, there was no one who had a much better tournament than he did. So yeah, this is gonna be definitely a tall task for him. And maybe Ethan give him a little pointers. Maybe Ethan knows his future teammate already. But yeah, those are 2 really good back-to-back matches.
139, Joey Senapal of Burgestown. He's headed to Lock Haven. Probably didn't have the tournament he wanted, right, in Hershey. Came up just short back-to-back years, back-to-back finishing in the blood round. Coming just shy of getting on the award stand. But a fantastic WPIAL career, a great wrestling career for that matter, obviously, for Burgestown. He gets one more crack at it on the mats, Jeff, and he'll take on Diver Van Dyke from Walsh Jesuit, who's headed to Michigan State.
Yeah, two top recruits here, 2 Division I recruits with Senapal going to Lock Haven, and Van Dyke going to Michigan State. Van Dyke has finished 3rd in the Ohio tournament, 143-14 in his career. So clearly he's been doing a lot of winning in Ohio. For Senapal, I think this could be a time when he actually. There's no pressure, right? There's nothing on the line here. There's not anything that says, hey, you got to go out here and get this win. He could turn it on. We know he's capable, right? We know he's capable of coming out here and putting on a show. It's just a matter of if he does it, right? He didn't end his season the way he wanted to. So this is a good chance for him to kind of step up and get a big win for the WPIAL, because the WPIAL's going to need it. They're going to need if they're going to beat Ohio. Ohio is really stacked this year. And the interesting note is Ohio doesn't have anybody on the USA team, which it's not rare, but it doesn't happen often where the team that's wrestling the WPIAL doesn't have one wrestler representing Team USA. So all their best guys are here. Not one of them's on the USA team.
Yeah, that's true. And, you look at some of the top states, not naming Pennsylvania, and Ohio is always one of those ones that are mentioned, right? You throw in a few others, but Ohio is always in that mix of a top 5 state in the country. So, yeah, I mean, you're talking about some states and who you bring in the face of WPIAL, and Ohio is right there as one of the best. So definitely it's going to be a good matchup here at 4 o'clock. Another guy who maybe didn't get quite where he wanted to be on the award stand at Hershey, Nico Taddy of West Allegheny, who's headed to West Liberty. He's here at 145 taking on A.J. Parrish from Perrysburg, who's currently uncommitted.
Yeah, and actually there was a late change there, Greg. Andrew Huck is going to be taking Parrish's spot there. Parrish got a little banged up in practice this week, so Andrew Huck from Bidwell River Valley is going to be taking his place. He's 167 and 32, and was sixth in the state in Ohio. Is headed to Lourdes University, so not a bad. They have depth, like you just mentioned. I mean, Ohio's certainly next guy up type mentality. Their guys they're super deep, for sure. So definitely looking forward to seeing Nico Taddy going at it. And, for Nico, he's had such an interesting career, finishing as a state medalist as his freshman year and then missing all of his sophomore year to injury. It's kind of like Ty Waters a little bit. Ty Waters missed a lot of time with injuries. And Nico, he battled Mac Church well. He just found a tough spot in the bracket and finished seventh in the state. But yeah, these guys are going to put on a show, I think, here.
152, Lucas Capusta of Hempfield area. He's currently uncommitted. He's taken on Winton Denkins from Perrysburg, who's headed to Campbell.
Yeah, Denkins is pretty solid. I've seen him. Perrysburg's got a slew of people here on the team, 3, I believe, and Denkins is pretty tough. He was third in the state this year, 151 and 22, headed to Campbell. So yeah, he's certainly going to be a formidable opponent for Capusta. And let's not forget, Capusta is up from 45. I mean, he's a lighter 52 pounder, and of course, we give a weight allowance for the classic, so not sure how much difference there's going to be in terms of weight. But Capusta, he's still looking for a home. I'm not sure, when he's going to make a commitment, but I'm sure there's a lot of teams looking to get him. I would be if I was a Division I coach.
160 pounds, the biggest debate, one of the debates, I guess, I shouldn't say the biggest, but one of the debates within the team with Grant McKay of Laurel, a very deserving guy to be on the PA team with his couple of state championships and a state second. From Laurel, he's headed to Pitt, but he'll be taking on Chris Ernest of Wadsworth, who's currently uncommitted.
Yeah, and looking for Grant to come in and really shine here for us at the WPIAL team, because we're going to need it, right? Ernest is certainly a tough opponent. He's 181 and 24 in his career, and he finished second in Ohio this year. Ernest is definitely no slouch. Wadsworth has a really good tradition, and Grant's going to have to bring it. But we're looking to Grant to be kind of an anchor here and be a leader on this WPIAL team, having 2 state championships and going to Pitt, right? We're definitely leaning on him to kind of rally the troops and get everybody fired up, because he is the headliner here, right? And you're right, there was a lot of debate. There was a lot of back and forth between Dylan Evans and Grant McKay to be on the Pennsylvania team. But, ultimately, both those guys are comfortable where they're at. So I don't think there's any hard feelings there.
172, Matthew Furman of Cannon McMillan, following his brother's footsteps, heading to Cornell. He's going to be taking on Miles Tackett of Perrysburg, who's headed to Bucknell.
Yeah, and this is probably one of the more intriguing matchups for me. Tackett's from Perrysburg, was a state champion this year, going to Bucknell. A guy who's definitely progressed in his career, much like Matt Furman has. Matt Furman is a guy who slowly just got better and better and better as the years went on. And of course, this year, making it to the state finals and going to Cornell. Furman's he's wrestled everywhere. He's wrestled in every national tournament there is. So he's certainly game for this. And he's another one I think we're kind of looking for a spark, right, on that WPIAL team. Furman, Matt can do some interesting things, right, on the mat. He's a little bit unique, a little bit funky, and we're looking for him to kind of give that spark for that lineup. Depending on where we start, it's going to be interesting to see. But Furman's definitely a guy that we're looking for.
Yeah, he's definitely made a lot of leaps in these last couple of years, and obviously if it wasn't for a guy named Rocco Welsh, I mean, we might be talking about Furman winning a couple of WPIAL titles, right?
Yes.
Rocco Welsh just happens to be one of the best in the nation. That's been in his weight class the last 2 years, and not only WPIAL titles, but who knows, even state titles. And we might be, talking about him on the PA team. But it's just the way it went throughout his last couple of seasons. So definitely should be a great matchup. 189, Brody Evans of Waynesburg headed to Edinboro. He's going to be taking on Cohen Grimm of Wadsworth, who's headed to Buffalo.
Yeah, and here's another one of those Wadsworth guys. And like I said, they just got a really strong tradition there at Wadsworth. Buffalo commit here, fourth in the state in Ohio. Grimm is certainly going to be a tough opponent for Brody Evans. But Brody Evans he's sneaky good, man. Like you look at him on paper and you're like, well, he's 78 and 32, That's not a fair assessment, right? I would never judge him on his record. And there's certain teams and certain wrestlers that you have to look at and say, I'm not really going to judge this guy's worth based on his record, because it's not a valid measurement, right? And Brody Evans is one of those guys. Clearly Edinboro sees his value. And, he had a great state tournament this year. Let's not, sugarcoat it. The guy went out and wrestled tough as nails to finish third in the state. So Brody Evans, I think, is definitely going to be a guy. Him and Eli Mako back to back, I think, are going to be two guys that we're looking for to get wins here.
Well, I'll tell you what, you talk about Matt Furman and his progress. How about Brody Evans as well?
Very much so.
Very much from freshman to senior season. And you got to look at the competition he had in the room, right? You got Eli Mako, Rocco Welsh. Guys, you're battling every single day. Just will continue to get better and better. And obviously they have a great, practice room there in Waynesburg, and, helped Evans propel himself. And yeah, you mentioned a great state tournament. And I tell you what, he and Gabe Stafford wrestled so many times, and they were always fun to watch throughout the course of their careers. 215 pounds. So you mentioned his teammate Eli Mako. He is again from Waynesburg, headed to Edinboro as well. So they'll be continue to be teammates. But it's going to be a tough sledding for Eli Mako. He's got one of the best guys in Ohio, Dylan Russo, who's headed to Oklahoma.
Yeah, big matchup for him. A three-time state champion from Ohio. Russo is a stud, right? Nationally ranked guy, just a complete animal. And Eli's the thing I like about Eli is he can slow people down, right? He can really keep people at bay. You saw it at the Powerade Finals against Austin Johnson of Muncie. He was able to slow him down a little bit. Russo's going to come out swinging and swinging fast and often, but I think Eli's going to be able to kind of weather the storm a little bit. And I'm not going to be surprised if he keeps it to a decision or potentially has it, close. I just think that Eli is able to do that. We've seen it time in and time again, him wrestling against some of the better guys, including nationally ranked guys, right? These guys are not, the Waynesburg guys are not shy from wrestling the nationally best guys, right? They go out to Ironman, they have some of the toughest schedules there is. Eli's I think he's going to do just fine here.
285, Ty Banco of Trinity, currently uncommitted, likely going to be playing football or doing both football and wrestling in college. He'll be wrestling Eli Kriblas of Allen East, who's also uncommitted at the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting because much like we talked about Anthony Ferraro, Ty Banco did not have a good state tournament, right? He fell to sixth place and actually lost to two WPIAL guys in Hershey after losing that semifinal match to Sean Kinney, where he kind of hit his head a little bit. So I'm curious to see where Ty's at, just physically and mentally. And the thing about Ty is, he's so solid. He's so consistent. He just had not a great weekend, right? For whatever reason that is, he didn't have a great weekend in Hershey, but his body of work overall has just been, there's not anyone that's been better than him, in my opinion, in the WPIAL. So Kribitz is certainly a guy that is going to bring it, right? He's a state champion from Ohio with only 15 losses in his career. But Ty Banco's, He's wrestled those guys. He's wrestled the best of the best. Look at his results from Powerade, and you'll see. I think he's going to be okay here, but it could end up in a fall because Ty Banco just has he just has a thing for pinning people pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's always interesting when you look at the makeup of the, especially more so on obviously PA. It's more the state champions and they're riding high. The WPIAL team, a lot of times it's a combination, right? It's guys that are looking for revenge, perhaps didn't have the state tournament they wanted, but obviously, as a committee, you guys know outside of that one weekend, they've been dominant, throughout their careers in the WPIAL. And then you have some guys who are riding high, right? Who've been wrestling phenomenal. Grant McKay, Matt Furman, Brody Evans, guys have put together some great tournaments. But then you have the Nico Taddies, Joey Sinopol, Ty Banco, who maybe are looking for bounce back match just to kind of cap things off after not having the weekend they had hoped for. So it's always interesting the makeup of the WPL team, in my opinion, because it's a little combination of both.
No, it certainly is, right? And I think, this year is no different. And, it's a well-balanced team between AA, AAA, and not some of your traditional powers, right? But you're still, I still think it's a balanced team, and I think we're gonna fare pretty well against Ohio. I'm just scared at some of these bigger, these Ohio guys are coming to wrestle, right? They're just. This isn't Indiana, not like last year, and no shade on Indiana, but this is a pretty tough Ohio team, and last year's Whitfield team was pretty stacked too, right? So there's something to be said for when you look at the Pennsylvania team, right? And you look at all the WPIAL guys on the Pennsylvania team, right? So not only is it just a one district in Pennsylvania going against the state, but some of the best from the WPIAL are already on the Pennsylvania team, right? Vinny Kokiri, Mac Church, Ty Waters, Dylan Evans, Rocco Welsh are all on the Pennsylvania team. So you put them on the WPIAL team, it's a whole different ballgame, right? So it's gonna be fun. The prelim is always exciting, and it always sets the tone for that main event. And there's always some really good wrestling at that preliminary match. And if I was attending, there's no way in hell I would miss that preliminary match. There's just gonna be a lot of fun matches, and these guys are gonna let it fly. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great point, something that I look at every single year. How many of those WPL guys are on that Pennsylvania team, and how much that could make a difference against a state when it's potentially close. So definitely interesting to follow for sure. Then you get the main event, Jeff, here coming up at 6 o'clock. We'll have another female matchup coming up first, or I guess depends on the order, so I shouldn't say first, but the female matchup, Abby Miles from Laurel, she's headed to Albion. She'll be taking on Destiny Rodriguez. She is from Westland, Oregon, going to McKendree.
Rodriguez is pound for pound one of the best girls in the nation. She's an absolute stud. She's undefeated in her high school career, 4-time state champ. McKendree's year in and year out one of the best women's teams in college. They've won a ton of team national championships. So, her going there is kind of says why she's as good as she is. But Abby Miles is not afraid. Abby Miles is certainly not going to back down. She took third in the state this year. She took a loss that she had a win over the girl before. But Abby Miles is certainly coming to wrestle tough. And I think having Grant there as well, not only a teammate of hers, but a friend of hers, I think that's going to help kind of alleviate some things. And I think Abby's been around these guys and these girls like Bella and some of the workout partners that are going to be there, Lena Rumpler and Jordan Faust. They're going to be fine, right? But Abby's got a tall task there against Rodriguez, she's an animal, right? And it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out.
Then you move into 121 pounds, Cale Nasdio of Williamsport. He's headed to Penn State. He'll be taking on Mark Anthony McGowan of Blair Academy, New Jersey, who's headed to Princeton. Nasdio has been red hot. He put together a great state tournament, Jeff. Mark Anthony McGowan, obviously, he's been a guy who's at the top of the national rankings over the last few years. Can Nasdio pull off the upset?
Yeah, I don't know if Nasdio wrestles like he did in Hershey. I definitely think it's going to be a competitive match, but unfortunately, Mark Anthony McGowan is just ridiculously good at wrestling. He's a cadet world champion. He's an Ironman champion. He's a beast champion. He's won everything, right? He's won everything that he's wrestled in. As he's gotten bigger and grown into his weight, we've certainly seen maybe some chinks in his armor a little bit, but certainly he's still one of the best guys in the nation for a reason. This is going to be a very tough match for Kale, but Kale has progressed so well over the last 3 months, right? Ever since Powerade, he's wrestled at a very high level and really just dominated guys. So many bonus points. I'm going to have to look back at all the bonus points he had between December and March. I think it was up until the state tournament, he had bonused everybody he wrestled. So Kale is going to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. He's getting beat up by Thomas Gilman. He's getting better, right? And it shows. Mark Anthony McGowan, he's ranked number 2 in the nation by both Matt Scouts and Flo at 127. So he's coming down to 121. He's headed to Princeton. He's a Florida boy who went to Blair, and he's wrestled a lot of Pennsylvania guys. He's wrestled Mac Church before. He's wrestled Mason Gibson before, and some of these guys. So it's certainly going to be a tough one for Kale. Kale comes in ranked number 14 in the nation by Matt Scouts. He's unranked by Flo, but Kale's been progressing. I don't think he's going to be afraid of wrestling Mark Anthony McGowan, even though that name kind of brings with it a lot of implications.
No doubt about it. 127. 2 guys that may end up wrestling each other several times here coming up in college. Vinny Kilkeary of Latrobe. He's headed to Ohio State, taking on Braden Davis from Dundee, Michigan, who's headed to Penn State.
Yeah, I mean, these two definitely have some history, and they're definitely going to have some future history coming up here in a few years. Vinny Kilkeary comes in ranked number 7 in the nation by both Matt Scouts and Flow Wrestling, whereas Davies comes in ranked number 6 and Matt Scouts in 5 in Flow Wrestling. And Davis is a guy who was a big-time recruit for Penn State, right? And you look at their credentials, being a 4-time state champ. He's certainly a guy who a lot of colleges were trying to get into their program. Vinny, on the other hand, he's been kind of that guy for quite a while. He won a Super 32 belt. He won a state championship as a freshman, and then maybe had a little bit of a sophomore slump, if you can call it that. But Vinny's a guy who I think growing into the weight at Ohio State and just getting in the Ohio State room, I think he's gonna flourish. I think his style is conducive to college. This is one. I mean, we've talked about it every year about the future of Big Ten wrestling going on at the Classic. I mean, I can remember so many Big Ten matches that happened in the Classic that now happen in college, right? Abe Assad and Carter Staraki, right? Levi Haynes, we just saw him in the national finals, right? So it's so much fun to see where these guys started and how they're going to finish. But these are 2 guys that are likely going to see each other.
And how much is Penn State hoping that Davis works out, right? Because that 125 weight class has been just a nightmare for them since Nico Megaludis graduated. So I know they're hoping for Davis to come in and be able to fill that spot for them. 133 pounds, Jaden Pepe of Wyoming area headed to Harvard, taking on Cale Hughes of Stillwater, Oklahoma, headed to Oklahoma State. These 2 guys, Jeff, they wrestled 4 years ago in July of 2019. This is back when they were both, I think the weight was 94 pounds. So
yeah.
They were when they wrestled. Hughes beat Pepe by tech fall in freestyle. However, it was a 5-4 match with about less than a minute left in that second period before Hughes hit a big 4-pointer and then obviously hit a couple rolls and teched him. This should be a good one here coming up at 133.
Yeah, I mean, that was a long time ago, right? I can remember when Jaden was 94 and headed out to Fargo and, was an All-American. And, Cale Hughes is one of the best. He's one of the best in the nation. He's pound for pound probably one of the best guys on the United States team. He's undefeated in his career. He's 140 and 0, 4-time state champion. He's headed to Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State needs a really good recruiting class because they didn't have a great national tournament. We saw them finish one of their worst in their history in Tulsa, but Cale Hughes is kind of the next guy, the next big thing that's coming to Oklahoma State and John Smith. So Jaden Pepe, the thing with Jaden is, he's probably one of the most unassuming 3-time state champs from Pennsylvania, right? I just feel as though he doesn't get talked about nearly as much, and I just feel like maybe he doesn't, at least maybe on the national scene, get as much respect as he probably should. He is ranked number 20 in the nation by Matt Scouts. He's unranked by Flo. As you mentioned, he's going to Harvard, and Cale is number 1 in both polls, right? Cale Hughes is the number 1 guy unanimously in both Matt Scouts and Flow Wrestling. So there's certainly an uphill battle there. I'd equate it to that Cale Nasio and Mark Anthony McGowan type match, where there's definitely, if they were to pull an upset from Pennsylvania, that's a really big one. But Jaden's not gonna shy away from Cale Hughes. I just think he's college ready. I really do. I believe he's college ready, and much like we're going to talk about with Rocco Welsh, I think he could have potentially had a case to maybe even medal in Tulsa this year. I mean, that's how good I think he is.
139 pounds, Tyler Kasak of Bethlehem Catholic, also headed to Penn State, taking on Ryder Block of Waverly Shell Rock, Iowa, who's headed to Iowa. These guys may see each other once again. Kasak, I guess, Jeff, before you kind of dive into this, last year Levi Haynes skipped his senior season to train at Penn State, and ends up on the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic team. Tyler Kasak doing the exact same thing. Was it a no-brainer to get him on the team?
I wouldn't say it was a complete no-brainer, right? Because we certainly had some depth around the 139 weight, but having a guy like Tyler, who was a world team member and has been in the national rankings, high in the national rankings for a number of years, I don't think it was much of a, it wasn't a stretch. When you're talking about Tyler Kasak, a lot of people are going to say, well, he didn't wrestle his senior season. Yeah, that's true. He didn't wrestle for his high school, but he certainly wrestled in some college opens. He's been training and competing, much like Levi Haynes, and I would 100,000% take Levi Haynes again and again and again. I don't care if he didn't wrestle at Biglerville, and I don't care if Tyler Kasak didn't wrestle at Bethlehem Catholic and was living in Bellefonte. It doesn't matter. He's a Pennsylvania wrestler. He's a senior, and this one's going to be fun because it's Penn State, Iowa, right? Much like Levi Haynes was last year, Penn State and Iowa. So Tyler is it's always kind of nice to see these guys that we didn't see all season, really, from the Scholastic standpoint, and see the jumps they made. I can remember seeing Tyler at the Surge this past year as a spectator, and I thought he looked huge. He looked like he was he just looked massive, right? And he's getting down to weight, and I think it's going to be we're going to see how much development he's made because we haven't seen it, right? I would have loved to see him, and it's crazy to think because his teammate Colin Rath ended up winning that state bracket, beating Pearson Manville, who beat him, Tyler, last year, right? I would have loved to see those four, throw them in a hat, those four, Dalton Perry, Kasak, Colin Rath, and Pearson Manville, and just throw them around and let them do a four-person bracket there. I don't know who would come out. You would think Tyler would, but I don't know. So yeah, this is definitely a big time matchup. This is probably one of my favorite matchups. Ryder Block is a stud. Just been so good for so long. I feel like his name has just always been in the national rankings or in the Super 32 or Fargo. He's just always been around, and he's 159-1, and he's a 3-time state champ. So he's pretty damn good. And he's ranked number 2 in the nation, both by Matt Scouts and by Flow Wrestling.
And I was looking at some results, Jeff. Block and Kasak have wrestled. It was 2 years ago, back in April of 2021, in the Ultimate Club Duels, where Block did defeat Kasak by decision. So just something to kind of look for as a couple years obviously have gone by. Lots changed between these two guys, but two guys that have met. 145, also a matchup of guys who have wrestled, and this one a little bit more recently, as you have Mac Church of Waynesburg, who's headed to Virginia Tech, taking on Coy Buskins, I think I said that wrong, but from North Prague, Minnesota, who's headed to North Carolina State. Buskins actually defeated Church back in the Super 32 this past October, beat him 3-0 in the consolation semifinal round.
Yeah, and actually I went back and watched that match I think it was yesterday, and just to see kind of how close it was, because I remember watching that back when the Super 32 happened, and there's certainly some areas of improvement that Matt Church can make, and Biskins is just he's a stud, right? I mean, he's really tough. He's big. He looks big for 45. I always think that when I see him, I'm just like, man, he's put together. Max got to open up, right? Max got to open up, and I really hope that there's no pressure on Mac. He's got to come out again. He's kind of like another anchor that we're looking for on Team Pennsylvania. Him and Rocco Welsh and Vinny Kokiri, and we're looking at these guys to kind of bring us home, right? Keep us in the match, and this is a toss-up match, right? When you look at the national rankings, Biskins is 1 by Matt Scouts, 2 by Flo, and Mac Church is 5 by Matt Scouts and 4 by Flo. So like this is a top 5 matchup, no matter how you split it. And we're going to need that one. We're going to need a decision here. We're going to have to flip that 3-0, to make it a 3-2 win in favor of Mac Church or something like that, right? We know Mac Church is capable. This is a little bit of redemption for him as well, because, losing in the state finals, not going out the way he wanted to, giving up those penalty points, it's probably not the way he envisioned losing. And if he was going to lose, that's probably not the way he wanted to. So this is kind of a little bit of a payback for him, because he can beat the guy who beat him a few months ago, right, at the Super 32, where Mac has been so good at the Super 32 throughout his career. I'm looking forward to this one. This one is just kind of the one I think is going to have some fireworks in. And these guys are future ACC guys, right? We talk so much about the Big Ten and Iowa, Penn State, and Ohio State. We got NC State and Virginia Tech, 2 teams that are just – I mean, I was just in Tulsa for the national tournament, and, there's a lot of NC State folks there. Man, they were littered. And Virginia Tech – they were littered as well. There was just people everywhere. It feel like they qualified their whole teams there. So this is a big one, in my opinion.
152 pounds, Ty Waters of West Allegheny, headed to West Virginia, taking on Dylan Gilcher from Detroit Catholic, Michigan, who's headed to Michigan. Waters, Jeff, we've talked a lot about him, obviously, on the show, especially these last couple of years, the improvement and obviously just coming back to health, right? Missing his entire sophomore season, but he just, how he was such a strong wrestler his junior year and just came back and dominated in his senior campaign. And this will be a good sending out party for him.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I can't think of a better way for Ty Waters to go out, right? I mean, these two are going to put on a show. Ty Waters, anytime he steps on a mat, it's going to be a show for him. And man, I'm excited to see this one. These two have some history, and Gilcher, I mean, he's an absolute stud. Detroit Central Catholic is a powerhouse program out of Michigan, and being a 4-time state champ from Michigan, going to Michigan, right? I mean, he bleeds the maize and yellow, right? But for Ty Waters, he's a kind of guy that I think, it's interesting to see that he was only 98-8, right? Despite missing an entire year, essentially. He's so good, right? He's so funky. And what I always say about Ty is he's 3 steps ahead of his opponents, it seems like, at all times. So I'm really looking forward to this one. These guys, again, have some history. They're going to have maybe some future battles in a couple years. And Ty Waters, I think right now, outside of Rocco Welsh for Pennsylvania, is definitely one of the most college-ready wrestlers on the team. He is so savvy, so tough on top, and he just finds ways to win, man. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This is a can't miss match here.
And Jeff, do you want to say, that Dylan's really good at scrambling, so Ty may not finish a shot to get in there and scramble a little bit?
I mean, I guess I have to. I feel like I have to just, well, if you look at the rankings, right, the national rankings, Gilcher comes in ranked number 2 on Mat Scouts and 4 in Flow Wrestling, whereas Ty Waters comes in 3 in Mat Scouts and 3 in Flow Wrestling. So, in one poll he's lower, and in the other poll he's higher. So, I don't know. I think he may be an underdog here. I may not be able to scramble with Gilcher. You never know.
Well, at any rate, that interview we had with him last show was just, it was unforgettable when he mentioned that, I could have finished the
He
shot
said
clean but wanted to scramble just
he
because of it.
he said that after the state tournament too. After he won a state title, he said that in the post match interview. I'm like, I mean, wow. I mean, my poor boy Garvik, you just could have taken him down and had, shown some dignity there, but no, you had to scramble with him because I said it, right? But no, I mean, I'm going to miss Ty, man. He's definitely he's one of my favorite wrestlers, one of my favorite, guys to follow and talk to. And it's a good thing he's going to be close at Morgantown, but he's definitely one of the ones I'm going to miss.
160 and 172, both matchups with some history, Jeff. The first one, Dylan Evans of Chartiers Valley, headed to Pitt. He's going to be wrestling Ethan Stiles from James B. Conant, Illinois, who's headed to Nebraska.
Yeah, another big time matchup here, and you look at the national rankings again. These guys are both, they're both ranked. Stiles is number 4 by Matt Scouts and number 5 by Flow Wrestling. Dylan is number 19 by Matt Scouts, 14 in Flow Wrestling. Dylan, these two have some history. They wrestled in Fargo. Actually, Stiles punched him out or not punched him physically, but knocked him out during the blood round in Fargo. So Dylan was not able to place. These guys are going to put on a show. Dylan Evans, he's been like the steady horse, right? He's just constantly, what to expect from him, right? He's going to continue to come at you. And I thought he wrestled really well in Hershey, albeit with the state finals. Forget the state finals. Up until that point, he beat really tough guys in Dom Frontino and Andrew Harmon, and he did it pretty soundly, right? So this is a big time matchup. I think this is one where Pennsylvania we can sneak a win here, right? And I don't even know if it's a sneaking a win. I think maybe you look at Dylan, he's probably expecting to win this match. So definitely looking forward to 160, especially because Dylan Evans, Grant McKay, right, future teammates, but also both guys at 160. I think Dylan's going to want to, kind of do it for Grant a little bit, and say like, hey, I was the one picked for the Pennsylvania team. I don't want to disappoint my roommate, my future roommate and teammate, and Grant McKay.
172, a rubber match between Rocco Welsh of Waynesburg, headed to Ohio State, taking on Josh Barr of Davison, Michigan, headed to Penn State. 1-1, Jeff. Should be a fun rubber match.
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, these two put on a show in Fargo, a show at Who's Number One, and this is a no-brainer, right? I mean, we had an early announcement for Rocco Welsh. We typically do that, with one of the Pennsylvania guys and select one of them early, before the rest of the team. And Rocco was kind of a no-brainer. This one is going to be the main event, right? This is the one that most people are signing up for and coming to see, because Rocco Welsh and Josh Barr they're two of the best in the nation for a reason, right? Pound for pound, Rocco Welsh is one of the best in the nation. I believe he's number 2 in both rankings, pound for pound. In the national rankings at 172, Rocco's 1 and Barr's 2 in both Matt Scouts and Flow Wrestling. This is definitely going to be the highlight match here. And of course, we have some implications with Big Ten, right? Penn State and Ohio State. And, Cale Sanderson's got to be pretty pleased with all the amount of future Nittany Lions that are on the classic teams. But this one's definitely worth the price of admissions right here. If you're gonna pay to watch or to come, you're definitely gonna get your money's worth by watching these two wrestle.
Yeah, no doubt about it. 4 guys from Penn State, 2 from Ohio State. 189, Jeff. Jake Jones from Saucon Valley, headed to Ithaca. We'll be wrestling Braden Thompson of Stillwater, Oklahoma, who's headed to Oklahoma State. 189 was one of those tough weights, Jeff, just because obviously Rune Lawrence there at Frazier, but not a senior, just not a senior state champion, and so this was more of a challenging weight, I think, for the committee, I'm sure.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It was. We went back and forth in circles, and around and around, and there wasn't really. There was a lot of talk, a lot of debate, a lot of discussion, and we just felt like looking at Jake Jones' body of work, right? Because you can't discount the fact that he has over 150 wins with over 100 pins in his career against, and that's a Saucon Valley lineup, right? That's a Saucon Valley schedule. That's a pretty tough schedule, right? I think Jake Jones is certainly the guy here. You look at, and you're looking at the state placement, and you're like, whoa, he finished 5th in the state. Like, what the hell's that about, right? He was 1-0 with Rune Lawrence this year in the state tournament. Now, he did fall to 5th, right? He couldn't get past Jake Kilfoyle in 2 straight weeks. That's certainly the elephant in the room. But it just felt like Jake Jones going against Braden Thompson, who is, by the way, one of the best guys on the USA team, by the way, right? Headed to Oklahoma State. I mentioned Cale Hughes and how he's kind of the future. Well, Braden Thompson is right there, right? He's a Stillwater boy. He's 84-0 in his career. He's a state champion, and he's a stud, right? And we didn't want to feed the person at 189 to the Lions, so to speak, but we did feel like Jake Jones was going to be able to hold his own here at 189. We didn't do him any favors by giving him Braden Thompson, but he's certainly a guy that's had a lot of experience wrestling top tier guys, bigger bodies, and he can keep it close, right? That's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that he can keep it close. But you're right. Going back to what you started out with, it was certainly a very tough, not unanimous, not like clear-cut pick here, like you said. And every year we have kind of one of them, but this year was especially troubling with 189. It was just tough.
215 pounds, no debate. Sonny Sasso of Nazareth. He's headed to Virginia Tech. He'll be wrestling Gavin Nelson from Simley, Minnesota, who's staying home in Minnesota.
Yeah, another one when you look at the body of work here from our 2 wrestlers that are competing here. This is kind of, I wouldn't say it's the co-main event, right? Because I definitely think there's some other matches that are worthy of that title, but Sonny Sasso and Gavin Nelson is going to be a really good matchup. And you look at the national rankings, Sonny Sasso is number 6 in Matt Scouts, Nelson is number 3. Nelson's also number 3 in Flow, and Sonny Sasso is number 13 by Flow. Sasso's a light 215 pounder, so I don't know how much of that plays into this. There was talk about bringing Sasso down to 189 for the Pennsylvania team. It just couldn't work out that way for us. He's going to be – it's going to be a good match, right? And you look at Sonny's progression. Sonny, and I just talked to Sammy out in Tulsa, and he kind of said, like, Sonny, he kind of – maybe had a little bit slow start to his high school career with COVID year, and it was just kind of awkward. And then boom, he really jumped out on the scene when he beat Max Stout, right, in the state semifinals and then won a state title. And this year, he had the injury. He missed some time, but he was dominant, right? He was certainly dominant throughout his senior year when he was on the mat. So this one is probably going to be a critical match for Pennsylvania. If Pennsylvania has any chance of winning, Sonny Sasso's got to get a win here against Gavin Nelson, who, as you said, staying home in Minnesota, 182-9 in his career, 3-time state champ. I will take a 2-time Pennsylvania state champ over a 3-time Minnesota state champ, just for if you're curious.
The last one, Jeff, for 285 pounds, Leighton Schmick of Carlisle head to East Strasburg, taking on Matthew Moore of Mesa Ridge, Colorado, who's headed to Nebraska. Obviously, 285 was probably another one of those weights that you had to debate. Who do you fill in that spot? At first glance, it's obviously Sean Kinney is not a senior from Nazareth, but Riley Robel, Bishop McDevitt is. But Robel decided not to join the team, right? And so Schmick has to step in.
Yeah, and once we verified that Riley was did not want to compete on the Pennsylvania team for his personal reasons, which I totally understand. He's going to college for football. He's a big heavyweight. He wants to get bigger for college and college football. And if you know anything about college football, you know that March that's not far away from the start of the season, right? Those guys are already gearing up, and if he wants to get on the field as a freshman, he's got to put on his weight. Obviously, we'd love to have him. We wanted him. We really did want him on the team. So it did put us in a little bit of a predicament where you didn't have a state champion senior, right? You had Aiden Compton, who was a state runner-up to Riley Robel, but you also had Schmick, who was third in a really deep AAA division, right? You had Sean Kinney and Pavlechko, both underclassmen. Schmick had some really quality wins at the state tournament. So again, I don't know if it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but it's just the way that the committee moved towards. And Schmick's going to have his hands full, right? I mean, it's kind of interesting because if you look at how the heavyweight turned out, a lot of people probably expected Jimmy Mullen and Riley Robel to wrestle because they're, the two best seniors, one in the nation, one in the state, and it just didn't turn out that way, right? We couldn't lock in Mullen, so we ended up going with Moore, and Moore is certainly a very formidable opponent. He's number 11 by Matt Scouts, number 7 in the nation by Flow Wrestling. Like you said, he's headed to Nebraska, so it's certainly going to be tough sledding for Schmick, but I'll take my chances. I think he's going to battle there.
Yeah, Nebraska having a couple of guys from the U.S. team as well here in this one. So should be a lot of fun here, Jeff. Again, the time's coming up on Saturday. If you don't already have your tickets, at Peters Township, WPIAL versus Ohio starting at 4 o'clock. Pennsylvania versus USA at 6 o'clock. Should be a lot of fun, Jeff. Any final thoughts as we wrap up our preview of the Wrestling Classic?
No, I mean, we just got to give a huge shout out to United States Steel Corporation. They're the presenting organization this year. They came in, and really helped out the classic. We depend on those sponsorships. That's how we are able to do this and put this on. So, I definitely would encourage everybody to take a look. If you go on PAPowerWrestling.com and click on the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, you'll see all our sponsors. And some of our weight class sponsors, our team sponsors, our product sponsors, and of course, U.S. Steel is the presenting organization here. But we have Visit Washington County, Camp Deer Creek Flow Wrestling, General Fabricating Services. There's a whole lot, and I would just say patronize our sponsors. They're the reasons why this is actually able to happen. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. We got a lot of good wrestling in store here, and you can go on the website. You can scan the QR code or download the link for the program, the 4-page program with all the matchups, and also the tickets are on there as well. So if you need to find out how you can get tickets for AHN Arena at Peters Township, go on there, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. And shout out to the Classic Committees members that are already there grinding. Zach Bowman, I know you're out there. Got to spend some time with Zach in Tulsa. I was working, he was partying. I wish I was with him there, but I'm excited. We're gonna have some fun this weekend, and it couldn't be done without the committee members and all the sponsors. So very thankful for all of them.
Make sure you don't miss it here coming up this Saturday. The Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic at Peters Township High School. For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. Thanks for listening in and watching in to WarUp on the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic.